Great games, but last night Travis Cloke back into a little bit of form for Collingwood. He was the best player on the ground. Watch a couple of highlights now. Hooker started on him, but he was absolutely terrific last night. 20 possessions, he kicked 5 goals, 4. He took 16 marks, which was a personal best for Travis Cloke. But I just thought Carl Hooker gave him too much space too early, where the doors being not there gave him that room that he needed. But geez, he was clunking them. He was kicking well early. He missed a few. He probably should have finished with 6 or 7 last night, Travis Cloke. But he looked confident. He looked like he was enjoying his footy last night. And I tell you what, Collingwood fans and Nathan Buckley would be rejoicing that hopefully he's returned to form, because he plays a pretty big, good backline next week in Josh Gibson and probably Ryan Schoenmakers. But last night was a real step forward. Like I said, he was the best man on the ground. He was, Brownie. Lloyd, you've been calling for that change to remove Chris Dawes for, I reckon, at least 6 weeks. It's finally done in round 23. Is this the way they now set up for the remainder of this year? Well, I think that he's gone from being a regular Dawes that you just must pick every week to now it's a week-by-week proposition. I agree with Brownie that next week he comes up against Schoenmakers, Gibson and the Birchells and all those types. So I think maybe Dawes has to come in for that first final. But then the week after they lose, you think they'll lose to Hawthorn and they'll come up against West Coast or North Melbourne. Suddenly, I think Buckley could revert back to a different forward line. So the other option thing, we'll talk about Maxwell a little later on. He had to do the ruck work, which isn't suitable. But I think if he is to come in, Podsiadly plays a great decoy-type role. On Schoenmakers, on Gibson when they beat. So he may have to do that against Hawthorn this week. With ruck contest being so important, surely Maxwell in the ruck isn't an option come finals time. Well, you'd think so. He rucked a little bit last night. David Hill, Todd Bellchambers went out just before the game. Hill came in. Now, Maxwell, he battled hard. He got ragdolled. He didn't really lose too many. He did get ragdolled a little bit, but you know, he competed. Now, when you look at the stats at the end of the game, all he needs to do is compete. Collingwood kicked 6 goals, 11 from stoppages. The Bombers kicked 1 goal, 5. Now, we know finals when they come up against Hawthorn next week, he might be rucking against Jared Ruffhead. Now, Ruff's been a great ruckman, but they're similar sizes. So I thought Maxwell did an OK job last night. Darren Jolly, we know he's a seasoned professional. But an OK job's not going to get it done now in September. They can't have. I don't think they're going to play Nick Maxwell on the ruck. I think Darren Jolly's going to go 1 out most of the time, and possibly for 2-3 minutes a quarter they might throw Maxwell in there and just hope that the bleeding doesn't start. But Darren Jolly, I think he's just about the best ruckman going around with Cox and Nat Newey, so he should play the whole game. Brownie, you were there last night. Andrew Cracker, did he do enough to hold his spot for next week? Yeah, I think they would be pretty happy with Andrew Cracker last night. Like, he wasn't in the best players, he didn't get a lot of the ball, but what he did was quite smooth and quite silky, as we've come to expect from Andrew Cracker. He had 11 disposals, he kicked the goal, he missed an easy one that he'd normally get, but just his kicking, as you see there, that one of Travis Cloke. I think along with him, for Solo was good last night, and also Didak coming into the side. They've got some real firepower at ground level now, so I think Andrew Cracker retains his spot for next week, because it was a feel-good story. When he kicked this goal, 15, 16 Collingwood players got over to him. They love Andrew Cracker. And the thing that I noticed last night, geez, he looked fit. He looked more ripped than what I've ever seen him. Nathan Buckley, guys, has been outstanding with his media work this year. And what he chose to do last night, though, was a little bit of a deviation from where he's been at, I reckon, all year. He chose to take the underdog status into this game against Hawthorn. We'll have a listen now.
Nearly David versus Goliath. I mean, they're on fire at the moment and playing great footy. So we plan to go out and hunt them as hard as we can.
Croft, who's David? Who's Goliath? In your eyes?
I think it's a reverse. The pressure's on Collingwood. They were in the grand final last year, and a few injuries certainly impacted the way they went about it. But, you know, Hawthorn are in good form, but everyone is expecting Collingwood to be right there. If they don't make a grand final, that's a fail for them this season, and you would think the same about Hawthorn, so it's going to be a beauty.
Why is he going down that path? Because he hasn't played those mind games too much publicly this year anyway.
No, he's just trying to make it out that they need to go out and hunt Hawthorn, whereas Hawthorn are going to do the same under Alistair Clarkson. They're going to hunt Collingwood down. They've got a good record against Collingwood, and it's going to be a beauty. Friday night footy, you just don't get any better than those two sides.
Let's have a look at the Collingwood and Essendon match. What a game it was at the MCG last night. We've sent Nathan Brown along to see Essendon 10-12-72, beaten by Collingwood 14-20-104.
Yeah, as we spoke about, Travis Cloke was terrific, also for Solo. Booms was great again. Dane Swan, 42 disposals. The Bombers were pretty good, though. Zaharakis kicked a couple. Young O'Brien kicked a couple also. Joe Watson was probably their best player again. David Hill came in late. Stanton, Dane Swan there, super coach points. Travis Cloak, Dane Booms, as we said again. But I tell you what, when we get big guests in, there's none bigger than this man. He started at Collingwood, he took Mark of the Year, he's All-Australian, went to Fremantle as a defender, now he's back at Collingwood, he plays forward, he plays back. I speak of Chris Tarrant. Welcome to the Sunday Footy Show, mate.
Thanks, Brownie.
You've retired, but you've still got the rest of this season to go, and it must be a pretty exciting time knowing that any game now could be your last, but any game now could be a premiership. Yeah,
it is. I mean, obviously when you make the decision to retire, you start, I suppose you reflect on the games you played also, but then you really do concentrate on the games you have to play. And obviously I've got at least 2 more left with the double chance, so, and hopefully we've got at least 3 games left.
What have you preferred most in your career? Because you're an outstanding forward earlier in your career. I played on you when you were a defender, terrific there as well. Where do you prefer to play?
Oh, I mean, they're obviously quite different. As a forward, you're probably more in the game, and it's probably more exciting. As a defender, you do your job, and you probably become more disciplined, I suppose.
What about in the ruck? Nick Maxwell had a go there last night. Didn't put your hand up for that?
No, but instead of calling him Nick Nat, we'll call him Nick Mac.
Exactly, I like it.
Maxie.
Last night, Travis Cloak back into form. He's been up and down all year. He's had more downs than ups. And against West Coast last week, couldn't get near the ball. But last night, from the very first mark he takes here, a big contested mark, he was on.
Yeah, he was, and it was great to see. Look, the reality is, if he's not playing well like he is like this, we're not going to go too far in the finals. So, I mean, it's a great confidence boost for him. He's been in the media a lot and he's copped a fair bit of flack. So, we're really happy with his form last night, and hopefully it continues on to Hawthorn.
Chris, do you believe you can go into the final next week without that backup ruckman? You went just jolly one out last night, no Chris Dawes. Do you think Dawes will be a chance based on Hawthorn's obviously defenders and also needing a second ruck?
Look, we'd love to have a second ruck, but the reality is we just don't. Yeah. So we just have to work with what we've got. And I don't think Dawsey was doing a whole lot in the ruck anyway, so I think, to try Maxi in there, you can only sort of level it out, I suppose.
Yeah. If you start back next week, who do you get? Who gets Franklin? What are the matchups looking like?
Yeah, I've missed the games against Hawthorn this year. I've played on Buddy before, and young Gunston I played on last time as well, who's a good young player as well. And they've got some dangerous forwards up there, so I think we really have to be on our toes. Our back line's pretty settled, so hopefully we can take them on.
Good to have Cracker back in. Andrew Cracker, of course, just gave you something. He didn't have a big game, but he gives you a bit of run, and the boys all he seems to be a very popular player.
Yeah, he certainly is. It was great to see him back. He just adds that X factor, I think, down there, which you need in finals time, and he produced a fantastic final series last year. So, he'd be probably better for the run. I know after the game he was saying how much the tempo's picked up since he's played. He's only played 3 VFL games, so he'll be good for the run, and it was good to see him kick a goal and get back on the scoreboard.
Chris, Essendon went out there last night. They knew they couldn't play finals, and they gave you a bit of a scare. But where do you think you guys need to improve as a side if you can go all the way? Because you're probably just a bit off those top teams at the moment.
Yeah, we are. And we are. We'd like to be playing a bit better football at the moment. There's no doubt about that. I think our foot skills last night were pretty poor, and I mean, Clokey really made the most of his opportunities. It was great, but I think even over the last few weeks, our foot skills have been ordinary, and we haven't helped the forwards out a whole lot, so I think we really need to pick that up.
We saw Tyson Goldsack go off the ground. He was subbed off. Didak came on. How's he pulled up?
Yeah, he's pulled up okay. I think it's just from his previous ankle injury that he missed a couple of weeks for, so hopefully he gets that right, because we do need his forward pressure up there. And
your small forwards now, Didak comes in last night and he showed a little bit. Cracker played his first game, but for Solo also, he was, I think, in your top handful of players. So if Cloak doesn't clunk it, you've still got those players down there to kick the goals. Yeah,
we do. Going with one real tall forward in Clokey and resting Dawsey, I suppose it just adds a little bit of different dimension down there, and I think it worked quite well. So I think we'll probably go into with a similar forward line this week. With a smaller forward line with maybe Did starting next week instead of the sub, because he did look really sharp when he came on, and we need his skill definitely, because he's one who uses the ball really well.
Mate, Dane Booms, unbelievable so far this year. He missed the grand final last year, pulled himself out of it, and then this year, as soon as Luke Ball went down, he's just been an awesome player who's had his fair share of trouble, but he's come back and probably the most influential midfielder in your side at the moment.
Yeah, he was. He was hampered by injury last year, and we probably didn't see the best of him. But I think as a young player, he's only 22 years of age. He's got a massive future in front of him, and You know, he's hard at it, he gets his own football, he runs hard, he chases hard, so he does everything that you want in a teammate.
Chris, how hard is it the last couple of games going into the finals? You know you're going to be in there and a part of it. How hard is it knowing that you've got to put your body on the line, yet you don't want to get injured because you want to be out there in amongst it?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think about that. I'm not sure if too many other players were last night. You just go out, and if the ball's there, you go and get it. And I think most of the players did that last night. Look, it wasn't probably the best game to watch last night. It was, the teams were pretty poor skill level, and you just hope this week against the Hawks that we can really pull it together and play some good footy.
Just want to ask you about your role. Have you enjoyed your time, your second half of your career, much more as a defender than you did as a forward, or is it just you maturing as a person? So how have you found that?
Yeah, I have. I think my consistency has been a real bonus for the second half of my career, and just being settled and being given a job to do each week and going out and doing that job I've really enjoyed instead of playing forward. You're sort of relying on a lot of things sometimes as a forward, as you know. But I think I've just enjoyed going out there and playing on some really good players as well. I played on some of the best forwards and held my own, which is great. So I've really enjoyed that as well.
Chris, if I can get you to cast your eye over to Nathan Brown, who's now in front of the big screen. Some analysis from that match last evening, Nathan.
Well, I've played on Taz a couple of times, and the art of a good defender is being able to body your opponent so your forward can't lead up with the footy. Travis Cloke, 16 marks last night. He was outstanding. But just have a look at some of these edits. And Cale Hooker, he'll learn from this. I mean, he played him from behind all night, which just allowed Travis Cloke to lead up the footy. See, he starts from behind. He hasn't got his arm across at any stage in this game. Here's the next one here. He's just completely out of place. I know he's fallen over here, but, I mean, he still allowed Travis Cloke first run at the ball. And as we play that, takes a really easy mark. And then this one. If we pause it right there, there's too much separation here in the goal square. I mean, he gets himself out of position. If he starts right next to Travis Cloke, doesn't allow him to run and jump and get the proper position, Cale Hooker could have saved a little bit last night of Travis Cloke kicking goals. Now, just before half-time, they moved Michael Hurley onto Travis Cloke, and Michael Hurley plays forward as a defender also, comes up into the defensive end. He was terrific. What he did, he bodied Travis Cloke before the ball came down, and he took something away from Travis Cloke. He got the front position and didn't allow Travis Cloke to lead up with the ball. Just have a couple of looks at what Michael Hurley did. Here's the first one. Right there, he starts in front of Cloke. This is what Cale Hooker wasn't doing. As we roll that tape, starts in front of him, doesn't allow Cloke the front position, doesn't allow him to run and jump at the footy. Here's another one, to kick off the ground, but he's still starting in front of Travis Cloke. So what Cloke has to do is either jump over the top of him or get it over the back. Here, Cloke is instigating contact now with Michael Hurley, whereas before, Cloke starting in front of Hooker was just allowed to lead up at the footy. So all of a sudden, Cloke's feeling for him. But then this last one, this is a beautiful play also. This is a great mark from Travis Cloke. But he starts in front of him. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing Michael Hurley could have done. He's taken the right position. That's just a really good mark from Travis Cloke, but he made him earn it.
As you make your way back to your seat, Brownie, let's go through your votes.
Yeah, I thought Travis Cloke was the best man on the ground last night. Dane Swan, 42 disposals. Fasolo was really good around the footy also. And Dane Beams was terrific, 33 disposals. Kicked a great goal in the first quarter. And next week, as we see, the qualifying final, Hawthorn take on Collingwood on the Friday night, which is going to be one of the games of the season. Everybody's looking forward to Friday night footy next week. And
Chris, retirement's not going to be... it's going to still be busy for you, going straight into business?
Yeah, it will be. I've set up a performance program helping sort of junior kids combine sport and education, so that's going on quite nicely.
It's called t2performance.com.au, and you do it with your brother as well.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And the brothers, Chris and Robbie, would have to have the best arms built.
Yes, cannons.
So arms and a chest like Chris, without embarrassing him, you can jump on board that, and
so
you look like the Tarrant brothers.
It's T and then the 2performance.com.au, and if you want to get some fitness tips from Taz, you'll end up with big, just anaconda arms.
That's what Mitch Clark was saying to you, I reckon, a couple of years ago. Run us through this. We saw this, and Mitch is going, look at Big Taz. This is me walking along here with me big cannons. What do you reckon, Taz?
He was just after some tips, Bill.
Well, it worked because he came down to Melbourne and Taz was training him. And he was on fire the first half of the season.
Well, but if this doesn't go that well, you can always go into acting. Let's have a look at this ad here with Taz, the star.
Hey, wait, what's that in your locker, you big girl?
It's great for mullets like yours, mate.
Some silk-based elements. Geez, you're a pretty boy.
Ease up, mate.
Hey, it's feeling soft and shiny, mate.
It's for blokes. New Sunsilk Base Elements. It's for blokes.
Good advert. Yeah, very good, that. Eh?
Haven't changed a bit, mate.
Thank you very much for coming in. Enjoy those prizes. Enjoy the final series. And just as importantly, enjoy life after footy.
Will do.
Good on you. Chris Tarrant joining us from the Collingwood Football Club.